Two men, same factory, same paycheck, same town, 23 years. One walked away with $127,000 in savings. The other had $4,200 in debt and no way forward. Same income, completely different outcomes. What separated them wasn't luck, a degree, or a hot stock tip. It was 10 habits so boring most people scroll right past them. Stay with me because by habit 7, you'll understand something about money that most people spend their entire lives missing. It's 1987, Youngstown, Ohio. Gerald has worked the same steel plant for 23 years. He drives a paid-off 1979 Ford pickup. Every day he carries a ham sandwich to work in the same metal lunchbox his father used. His wife cuts coupons from the Sunday paper. His neighbor, Rick, works the same shift, same wage, same hours. But Rick drives a new Chevrolet. He eats lunch at the diner across the street. His wife pushes a grocery cart without a list. On paper, these two men are identical. By 1997, when the plant closes and both are laid off, Gerald has $127,000 saved. Rick has $4,200 in mounting debt and no plan. They earned the same money for over 2 decades. So, what happened? This is where the story gets interesting. Because the difference between these two men was not created in 1 year, 1 month, or one lucky investment. It was created quietly. Every payday, every grocery trip, every purchase, every financial decision was moving them in one direction or the other. And that is one of the biggest misunderstandings about building wealth. People often imagine wealth as something created by a huge salary, a brilliant investment, or a business that suddenly takes off. Those things can certainly help. But for ordinary people, wealth is often built much more quietly. It begins with what happens to the money that never gets spent. That brings us to habit number 1. Habit number 1 is learning to live below your income. This sounds obvious, but it is one of the hardest financial habits to maintain because your lifestyle has a natural tendency to expand alongside your income. You get a better job, and suddenly the apartment you were comfortable with feels too small. You receive a raise, and suddenly the car you were driving feels outdated. Your income increases again, and now restaurants, vacations, subscriptions, and entertainment slowly become more expensive. Nothing feels reckless. That's the danger. Financial problems are not always created by irresponsible people making irresponsible decisions. Sometimes they are created by perfectly normal people making reasonable decisions too frequently. The solution is to create a permanent gap between income and lifestyle. If you earn more, you do not have to spend more. That difference can become savings, then investments, then eventually financial independence. Habit number 2 is becoming extremely careful with recurring expenses. A one-time purchase can hurt. A recurring purchase can quietly change your entire financial life. Think about a $20 monthly subscription. It sounds insignificant, but that's $240 every year. Now imagine 5 subscriptions. Then add delivery memberships, streaming platforms, cloud storage, premium apps, gym memberships you barely use, and automatic services you forgot you even signed up for. Suddenly, hundreds or thousands of dollars are leaving the household every year without a conscious decision. That is why one of the smartest things you can do is review your recurring expenses regularly. Ask yourself one question. If this payment disappeared tomorrow, would I genuinely miss the service? If the answer is no, cancel it. You are not trying to eliminate every pleasure from your life. You are eliminating expenses that no longer provide enough value to justify their cost. Habit number 3 is planning your spending before you enter the environment that encourages you to spend. This is especially powerful with groceries. A grocery store is designed to make you buy more than you originally planned. You walk in for 5 things. You leave with 20. Maybe there is a promotion. Maybe something looks convenient. Maybe you suddenly decide to try a new product. None of those purchases feels financially dangerous, but repeated every week, they become expensive. A basic meal plan changes the equation. You know what you are cooking. You know what ingredients you need. You know what is already in the refrigerator, and you have a much better chance of using everything you purchase. The same principle applies to almost everything. Make the decision before the temptation appears, because it is much easier to follow a plan than to negotiate with yourself in the middle of a shopping aisle. Habit number 4 is using what you already own. This habit is incredibly boring and incredibly profitable. Before buying something new, look around your house. How many things are already sitting there unused? How much food is in your freezer? How many clothes have barely been worn? How many tools, electronics, or household items could solve the problem you are about to spend money fixing? Modern consumer culture constantly tells us that the solution to a problem is another purchase. But sometimes the solution is simply using what we already have. This does not mean refusing to replace something that is genuinely broken. It means separating necessity from novelty. If your phone works, you do not automatically need the newest model. If your furniture is functional, it does not automatically need replacing. If your wardrobe already contains enough clothes, another shopping trip may not improve your life nearly as much as you think. The money you do not spend remains available for something more important. Habit number 5 is delaying purchases. This one is powerful because it attacks the emotional side of spending. When you want something badly, buying it immediately feels satisfying. The problem is that urgency creates bad decisions. So create distance. For smaller purchases, wait a day. For larger purchases, wait several days. And for major financial commitments, give yourself enough time to investigate the decision properly. You will discover something interesting. Some things you desperately wanted yesterday will become completely unimportant tomorrow. That is not failure. That is information. The waiting period allows the emotional excitement to disappear, so the financial decision can become clearer. Habit number 6 is paying yourself first. For decades, many people have approached money in the wrong order. They earn, they spend, they pay bills. Then they look at what remains and decide whether they can save. Usually very little remains. Instead, reverse the process. When your income arrives, move a predetermined amount towards savings or investments first. Then live on what remains. The difference is psychological. If you tell yourself you will save whatever is left over, spending will usually consume the available money. But when saving happens automatically at the beginning, your lifestyle adjusts around the remaining amount. You don't have to fight yourself every month. The system makes the decision for you. And automation is particularly powerful because it removes emotion from the process. You don't have to wake up every payday and ask whether you feel disciplined enough to invest. The transfer happens whether you feel motivated or not. Habit number 7 is resisting lifestyle inflation. This is where a lot of high earners lose their advantage. Imagine someone goes from earning $60,000 to $80,000. That's a significant increase. But instead of allowing the additional income to strengthen their finances, they immediately increase their spending. A more expensive apartment, a newer car, more expensive restaurants, more frequent vacations. The additional $20,000 disappears into the lifestyle. Now imagine another person receives the same increase, but keeps most of their previous lifestyle. They enjoy some of the raise, but the rest goes toward investments, debt reduction, and savings. 5 years later, the second person may have substantially more wealth despite having exactly the same income history. This is why a raise is not automatically a wealth event. It becomes a wealth event only when some portion of the additional income is retained. Habit number 8 is learning enough about money to protect yourself. You do not need to become an economist. You do not need to spend every evening studying financial markets, but you should understand the basic machinery. Know what high interest debt does. Understand how compound growth works. Understand why diversification matters. Understand that investment returns fluctuate. Understand the impact of fees. Understand how inflation reduces purchasing power over time. Understand the difference between building an emergency reserve and investing long-term money. Financial knowledge gives you something that income alone cannot provide. It gives you the ability to recognize bad financial decisions before you make them. A person earning $50,000 with good financial knowledge can sometimes make better long-term decisions than someone earning $150,000 with no financial discipline. Money rewards understanding. Habit number 9 is developing additional ways to create income. This does not mean turning your entire life into a non-stop hustle. It means recognizing that your skills can potentially produce value outside your primary job. Maybe you can tutor. Maybe you can write. Maybe you can edit videos. Maybe you know how to repair something. Maybe you understand a specialized industry well enough to consult. Maybe you can create educational content. The first objective is not to become rich from a side business. The first objective is to create another financial lever. An extra $400 a month is $4,800 a year. If that income is consistently invested instead of absorbed into lifestyle spending, it becomes much more significant over time. And there is another benefit. Additional income can reduce your dependence on a single employer. That creates flexibility. You may not need the second income forever, but knowing that you can generate money in another way can change how confidently you approach your career. Finally, habit number 10 is staying patient. This may be the least exciting habit on the entire list. It may also be the most important, because every other habit requires time. Saving works over time. Investing works over time. Debt reduction works over time. Career growth works over time. Compounding works over time. And time is something you cannot manufacture. You can earn more money. You can save more aggressively. You can learn new skills. But you cannot create another 20 years. That is why starting early matters so much. Consider someone investing $500 every month for 30 years at a hypothetical 7% annual return. They would contribute $180,000 themselves, but the account could grow to roughly $610,000. The exact result will vary because actual investment returns are uncertain, but the lesson is clear. The money you contribute is only part of the story. The growth on previous growth eventually becomes a major part of the story. That is why patience is not passive. It is an active financial strategy. You are giving your decisions enough time to compound. And now go back to Gerald and Rick. The difference between them was not created when the factory closed. The factory closure simply exposed the difference. For more than 2 decades, they had been receiving similar paychecks, but their money had been going to different places. One man's income was gradually becoming financial security. The other's income was gradually becoming consumption and debt. That is the lesson. Your paycheck is not your wealth. Your paycheck is the raw material. What you repeatedly do with that paycheck determines what it eventually becomes. You can turn income into payments, or you can turn income into assets. You can turn raises into larger expenses, or you can turn raises into larger investments. You can spend every extra dollar, or you can keep some of it working for your future. None of this requires you to live a miserable life. You can travel. You can eat at restaurants. You can buy nice things. You can enjoy your money. The objective is not to avoid spending. The objective is to make sure spending does not consume every opportunity your income creates. Because financial freedom is not about having the most expensive lifestyle. It is about reaching the point where your financial life gives you choices. The choice to leave a terrible job. The choice to handle an emergency without panic. The choice to help your family. The choice to retire when you want. The choice to take a risk because you can afford to fail. And ironically, that freedom is often built through decisions that look incredibly ordinary. Driving a reliable car. Cooking at home, waiting before buying, saving automatically, investing consistently, keeping your lifestyle under control when your income rises, learning how money actually works, finding another way to earn, then repeating those behaviors for years. That is the part nobody wants to hear because it does not sound exciting. There is no secret stock, no guaranteed shortcut, no overnight transformation, just small decisions repeated long enough to become powerful. And maybe that is why the story of Gerald matters. He did not need to look wealthy. He needed to become financially strong. Because when the paycheck disappeared, the difference finally became visible. One man had options. The other had obligations. And that is what these 10 habits are really about. Not becoming the person with the most impressive possessions. Becoming the person who has the most control over what happens next. Because the quiet decisions you make today may not change your life tomorrow. But repeat them for 20 years, and they might completely change the life you are living then.